Okay, so this is about 387 games. This is how many games I played last year. So these are not the exact games I played last year. Some of them are, like this is the board game cafe that I work at. But just so you can see, like this, just so you can see what 387 games looks like, it looks like this. So out of all these games, I picked 11 of them that I think kind of work for any group of people who you might be playing games with. So that could be like if you like playing fancy games, like if you like playing like Wingspan, great, awesome, there's something for you. But also if you just play like Uno, like if you just really like Uno, I played a game last year that is basically like Uno, but better. And so I tried to find 11 games that are gonna kind of fit anybody so that at least one of these will be one that you will wanna try. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Who the heck are you and why should I listen to you? So this is the board game cafe that I work at. I'm Connor. This is the board game cafe that I work at. My job is teaching people games. So my whole job is just like learning these games and teaching them to people. So I recommend these games to people all day long. And when you teach games all day long, you start to figure out like which games are actually good for different groups of people. Like I have a lot of dates coming in. We have this 2-player section. And so I know great games to teach to a date. But also, what if you're like at a party and you want to play a party game that is not a game that everybody's already played? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Hues and Cues, like great game, but everybody and their mom has played this game already. I cannot show this to anybody without somebody being like, we've already played it. So I tried to pick games that you probably haven't heard before. They're a little bit more out there, so you probably haven't heard of many of these. But I also wanted to divide them into groups for like what group you might be playing with. So I have games for people who want to go to like a party and bring a game along, or if you just want to have like a date night in or a date night out, you can play these games. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will have at least one game that's new, that's interesting, that you haven't played before. And I also am going to save my favorite game for last. And I promise you that this game is so different than any game you've ever played. And I know that's stupid because a lot of people are like, oh, this game is so, no, like, every time I bring out this game, it blows people's minds and it creates this experience that feels so unlike any other game. Anyways, I'm not gonna keep talking about it. We'll get to that game. But I'm gonna start off with the party games because I think the party games are like the most common ones that you will probably play with a group of people. And then we'll go on to the other ones after that. Okay, so here's the party game section. First game that I want to recommend is not Codenames. Codenames is great. You should play Codenames if you haven't played it before. I'm not here to recommend you Codenames. I'm sure there's a bunch of people who've already done that. I am here to recommend you the game that is going to replace Codenames, and that is Decrypto. Okay, there's a lot of very cool things about Decrypto, but the basic idea is that you are trying to crack the code of the other team. So in Codenames, you're giving your own team clues to reveal like all the undercover agents. In Decrypto, you are basically trying to give your own team clues, but you're trying to crack the other team's code while they're giving their own team clues. I know that probably sounds like a little bit confusing, but basically the idea is that there's these cool little things, and they're like, you remember those old toys you had that like have the, you can't see them, but then if you slide them in, you get it. You know, you've seen those before. So basically you are giving your own team clues, but you're not giving them clues to guess the words that are like inside these little things. You're giving them clues to guess the numbers that the words are associated with. And what I love about this game is that you actually never need to know the other team's words. Like, you don't have to know that the word here is princess. All you have to do is know that when I'm giving the clue dress, it is related to things like pink or royal or crown. And that's the thing that I really love about this game, is that it has that like abstract element to it where you are trying to think outside the box and you're trying to give these abstract clues. But if you go too abstract, your team is not going to know what the heck you're talking about, and then you're going to basically blow up your own bomb. So you can win at this game by cracking the other team's code, or you can lose at this game if you don't give clues that are clear enough. And I think that like balance of needing to be clear, but also needing to be vague has such this cool tension that like Codenames, you're just trying to be clear. Decrypto, you need to be clear, but you also have to throw the other team off. And it's this really, really cool feeling on how to get to a clue that is going to be a good clue for your team. So Decrypto is my first recommendation for a game. I think it's great at any party where you have 4 or more people. If you like a game like Codenames, try Decrypto. A little bit older, might be harder to find. It is from 2018, a little bit older, but I do have a game that is from this past year. It's very new, and I want to show you that one. Sorry, it isn't from last year. It's from 2024, so an extra year ago. But another party game, and if you have played games like Herd Mentality, if you played Herd Mentality or Blank Slate, This game is basically like those, but you're also playing tic-tac-toe, which sounds ridiculous, but I promise you it's a fun time. Okay, so here's the game. Come here, I'll show you how it works. Okay, so the game is called Jingso, and there's a lot of games out right now that are about thinking like other people. Blank Slate, Herd Mentality, basically games where you're like trying to write down answers and you're trying to match with other people around the table. And they're fun games, but at a certain point you can only do a game so many times where it's just like write down an answer and see if you match. And that's why I really liked Jingso. Jingso is basically like all those other games, but you're also playing this little mini game of tic-tac-toe. So look at this. In the box, you get a little board like this, and you get a whole bunch of different prompts. So the prompt might be something like, name a food you eat as a dessert. Now, there's no right answer in this game. A lot of people, when I teach this game, are like, how do I know what the answer is? There's no right answer. The right answer is the answer that you think other people are gonna write down, okay? So in these boxes, you're gonna write down that answer. If you match with a bunch of people, you'll get a point. If you match with only one person, you'll get 2 points. So you wanna be like a little bit vague with your answers, but the more you match with your friends, the more chance you have of getting these bonus points with the rows and the columns. So if you manage to match like this full row here, you're getting 3 points. It is just so cool how you are trying to think of an answer that is gonna match a lot of people, but you also wanna be like a little risky and be like, I hope maybe one person writes down like tort or like cheesecake instead of just writing down like cake or like pie, right? Because you can get those little bonus points here and there, but then also you really wanna make sure you do match because you wanna get those bonus points. And so it's this really cool push-pull of like trying to think like your friends, but also trying to think a little bit weirder than you normally would. And so with Jingso, like if you're looking for a party game that is just silly, it's easy to jump into, anybody can understand, like you can play this with family, you can play this with like younger kids, like I would say probably 12 and up would be able to handle this game and like play just as well as an adult would. And so this game specifically, like party game, if you're looking for something that is gonna have that great time with a group of people, that's just silly and fun and light and doesn't make people feel stupid necessarily, Jingso is the one to go with. It is just a great party game for that. Okay, the next party game that I have is a game that is by the company Exploding Kittens, who makes a game that you probably have heard of before. It's called Exploding Kittens. And they made another game, I think it was like last year, I wanna say, but they made another game, and that is this game. It is a game called What Were You Thinking? It's a clue-giving game. It's really cool because you can play it both competitively or cooperatively, which I really appreciate. But it does something really cool. So here's this one. Also, I just want to say, like, before I keep going through all these games, I am not sponsored or all, like, I don't work for any of these companies. I work for a board game cafe. So none of this is like sponsored. I don't get paid for by any of these board games. I just really like board games, so that's why I'm excited. So don't think that like I'm trying to pitch you on like a game to buy because I have any benefit from it. Anyways, next game called What Were You Thinking? So as I said, you can play this game competitively or cooperatively. It's a clue giving game. Basic idea of the game is that there's a whole bunch of like letters here on this board, and you are trying to flip over a line of those letters. If you're working cooperatively, you're just trying to flip over a line. If you are going competitively, you're trying to flip over a line before the other team flips over a line. And how you do that is by using 2 of those letters and giving your teammate a clue. So for example, you might be trying to get your teammate to guess the word penguin. You can give any clue you want that starts with those letters. So on the back of the box, the example here is waddling tuxedo, right? We'd use the letters W and T, which are a little bit of the weirder letters to try and use. Now, if your teammate guesses penguin, great, that's awesome. You flip over a W and you flip over a T. You're now closer to flipping over a full line worth of letters. But if you try to go for those risky letters and you give a clue that's a little bit weirder, guess what? They don't get it right and they're gonna basically biff it, and then the other team is gonna get those letters instead of you. Now you're probably gonna notice this is very similar to the thing that I liked about Decrypto, and it's that you are having this like push-pull of how weird you wanna give the clue versus like how specific you wanna give the clue. I guess that's like the first 3 games altogether. But you have to decide, like, are you going to be clear and just flip over 2 letters that might not be in the same row, but maybe like make some progress? Or do you want to try to give that like really specific, risky clue, but if your friend guesses it, boom, you have now completed that line. And I think one of the underrated parts of this game is what I mentioned before. You can play this game competitively or you can play it cooperatively. And that alone is such a great thing to have in a game, because sometimes you have a group of people who maybe is a little more nervous about playing a new game. You're showing them something new and they don't really understand the rules. They don't want to feel dumb. Great, play the game cooperatively first. And then once everybody gets it, break off into teams, play the exact same game, don't learn any new rules, but now switch it to be competitive. And in my opinion, there's something really special about having one game that you can bring somewhere and have like multiple ways to show that game or to play that game, depending on what the vibe is when you get there, or like how the vibe develops throughout the night. There's just not that option with a lot of games. A lot of times you kind of have to predict and be like, oh, I want to bring something that's going to be silly, and you get there and maybe that's not really the vibe. Or you're like, oh, I want to bring something that's strategic, and you get there and everybody's like, I have not played any complicated games before, and you don't really want to teach them this super complicated game because they just want something silly and fun. And so having the opportunity, having the ability to like bring something but be like, hey, why don't we do this cooperative, or why don't we do this competitive? It's just one of the parts that impresses me about this game a lot. Okay. The next game that I want to show you is kind of like the last like full party game. This one is the game that I'm calling the Uno Killer. If you like Uno, you're going to like this game. If you start playing this game, you're not going to want to play Uno anymore. So this is a game called Nuts About Mutts. Nuts About Mutts is basically Uno, but you don't have to wait for your turn to play your card. You can play cards out of sequence. So here's what that looks like. Okay, so in Nuts About Mutts, kind of like Uno, there's like numbers and colors. It's kind of like that classic game. You're like matching the color or the number. But in this one, there's a third type, and that is the breed of dog. So if I played this card, you could play on top of that card, if you're the next person, by playing a 4, or by playing a green card, or by playing a Scottish Terrier. But here's the twist. If you have played the Scottish Terrier and it's not your turn, so like we're going clockwise, I play the card, next person beside me is about to go, but you over there in the corner have an exact match of that card. Or if you have a card that's like one higher or one lower of the same color, you can play that card out of sequence. And not only does that help you get rid of a card, it also now changes the turn order. So you've just went, which means it's now the person to your left who gets to go next, instead of the person to like the person who played the card before. So as you can imagine, it is just kind of like insanity. It's cutthroat, you're throwing down cards, you're just shouting things out, you're changing the turn order. But on top of that, there's these blue cards that you can add in. I've only really played with the mutt. The mutt is basically, when you play the mutt, you play it down as kind of like a wild, and then everybody plays like this musical chairs of like trying to slap these little wooden bones. I'll see, one sec. They're trying to slap these little wooden bones. So there's a bunch of them around, but like one less than the players. So one person won't be able to slap a bone. And then whoever doesn't slap a bone has to draw another card. The idea of the game is just getting rid of all your cards. It's like Uno. But what I like about this is that it keeps you a lot more engaged than like waiting for your turn and then like playing the only card you can play. You're kind of always on. You're always waiting and seeing like, oh, if you play the 7 yellow and I have the 9 yellow, I'm now like on the edge of my seat waiting to see if the next person plays an 8 yellow because I can now play the 9 yellow. Or somebody else cuts in with the 8 yellow and I cut in with the 9 yellow. So you have more opportunity to play the game, which is what I like about this. You're not just waiting for your turn, you're playing the game kind of like always while you're playing the game. Anyways, as I said, this is kind of like the perfect replacement to Uno. If you like Uno, if your friends like Uno, try this game. If you like Dutch Blitz, I don't know if you're familiar with Dutch Blitz, try Dutch Blitz. It is fantastic, but this is a great kind of alternative to Dutch Blitz as well. Any kind of like speed game or simple matching game, I would replace it with this one. It's a small box. It's easy to bring around. Yeah, it just is a great one. Okay, we're gonna switch from a party game to like a party light strategy game, okay? So if you've heard of the game Camel Up, it's not, my game recommendation is not Camel Up. If you've heard of the game Camel Up, this is basically like a modern classic. It's basically a game where you're betting on a camel race. You're trying to make the most money. I love race betting games when they do something cool. So Camel Up kind of like broke the mold, because the idea of that one is that the camels can stack on top of each other, really unpredictable what's going to happen in the race. But there's a new game that came out last year that you actually have a little bit of influence over what happens in the race. And I haven't seen that done too many times, and I really, really liked this one. It's gotten a lot of buzz. There's a chance you've already heard about it. Give me one sec, I'll grab it. Okay, I grabbed it. So this is a mascot racing game. This is a game called Hot Streak. These are the little mascots. Can you see their little eyes? I love this. It's so stupid. I love these little eyes. Most times I don't love like the overproduced kind of garbo stuff in games like plastic pieces. This one, I think you need these pieces in this game to make it as silly and fun as it is. I think they really did a good job with it. But this is a betting game where you can influence the race and you can just have a goofy time. So this is a game where you are basically betting on this mascot race, but you're also influencing the race by putting in cards. And on these cards are like going through and you're flipping them, and each one will move mascots in different ways. But the thing that is so cool about this game is that it makes that idea of a racing game really stupid. So in this game, you can have your mascot run off the track, and then it's just out of the race. You can have a mascot fall down or turn around. And if mascot's fallen down, another mascot might land on top of it and trample it. So there's so many weird things that happen in this game where it's like, okay, Hot Dog Man, right? Hot Dog Man is about to win. And I'm betting on Hot Dog Man. All of a sudden, Hot Dog Man falls over. Angler comes by. He tramples Hot Dog Man. And then Gobbler runs up and he runs off the track. And then the Queen wins. Like, it is just the stupidest racing game that you've ever played. But the actual playing of it is super streamlined. You choose a card to influence the race, you shuffle the cards, you place your bets, you decide if the bets are risky or safe, and then you just flip over cards and run the race. And so out of the racing games that I've played, I have not had one that creates this much fun. There's another game called Ready, Set, Bet, which is basically like a live horse race. And that one is a blast. Like, that one is a lot of fun. And this game is basically like that with a little more stupidity. Like, it just adds that whole other element of like unseriousness to it. And that's the thing that I think you will like about this game, that I liked about this game, that if you show somebody, they'll also appreciate. It's that the game doesn't take itself seriously. Like, you are not pulling this out and being like, we are making these bets and we're doing these things. You're like, listen, guys, there's a hot dog guy. He's in a mascot race. He might get trampled and he might lose the race. We're just going to be goofy and have fun. And so there's very low stakes in this kind of like gambling game already. This kind of even lowers them a little bit more to a point that you can just have fun. You can just goof around with friends. You can bet on this race. You can see what happens. You're not bummed if you lose. You're super excited when you win, and you just goof around and have a good time. And I'm pretty sure this game has gotten like a lot of buzz lately. I know for us, like, we're in Canada, and so this game was very hard to get. I don't know if it's from the US or the UK or whatever, but anyways, it was very hard to get in for us. So we finally got it recently, and so I've just played this recently. But I think it's been out for a little bit in some places. If you have a chance to try it, it's awesome. It's a hoot and a half. I would highly recommend this one. Okay, next up, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the game that everybody seems to think is the game that you should teach somebody who is just getting into the board game hobby, and that is Catan. Now, don't get me wrong, Catan is a great game. Really, really good game. There's a reason that it is like one of the most popular board games out there, and there's tournaments, all this stuff. But this, look at this. This is not a game that you should teach to somebody who has not played any games before. There's too much stuff going on. I have a lot of personal baggage about this one because people come in here all the time and ask to learn Catan, and they have not played games before. And I'm like, this is gonna be like 30 to 45 minutes of me sitting here and going through all this stuff because you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. The next game that I have is basically, what if you could have a game that could introduce people to the idea of Catan without actually being as complicated as Catan? And that is a game called Waterfall Park. Waterfall Park is basically the negotiating part of Catan without all of the extra stuff. Now, I know exactly what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, well, Catan is about all that extra stuff, and that's fine. Before you show your friend that kind of like light to medium weight game, show them Waterfall Park, okay? This is basically just the negotiating element. It's gonna explain the secret sauce of Catan. You're gonna understand what makes Catan so good without having to explain like, every time you roll this, you're getting this, and this turns into this, and also there's development cards, and you have enough night. Anyways, Waterfall Park is a re-implementation of a game called Chinatown. And this game is basically, you have all these little spaces in this theme park and all these attractions, and you are basically trying to build out your attractions so that you can make money. But the secret sauce to this game that I think it actually does better than Catan is that you can trade like whatever you want for whatever you want. So if I am trying to build like, you know, a bowling alley or whatever, and you come along and you're like, listen, I got a bowling alley for you, but I really want that space that you own on the board. I gotta be like, okay, am I gonna trade you that space? And then somebody else comes in and is like, I'll buy that from you for like $2 instead, or I'll sell you this or whatever. Suddenly you're in this like three-way negotiation with all these people around the table. I recommend this game at the full 5-player count. I think that's where it shines best. That gives you the most like ability to negotiate and make deals and like cut in and do all these different things. But for a like light strategy game where you're just kind of like learning how to talk around the table and be social and like have that social style of game be introduced to you, Waterfall Park, I don't think there's a better option for that. Now this is definitely like on the lighter side of a light strategy game. It's pretty easy to like jump into compared to a lot of the other light strategy games. But for a game that you can just kind of like throw on the table with, 4 or 5 ideally people and just start goofing around and negotiating and trying to trade things for different things, I think this really captures that feeling in a game without a lot of like the other junk that you might not be looking for at that time. And if you really do love Catan, like I think it's a great game, start with Waterfall Park, teach your friends how to play it, and then once they know how to play it, bring them up to Catan and get them to start playing Catan. Because it's gonna be a lot more fun to play Catan with people who already know how to do that social element of negotiation, because that's almost one of the worst parts of teaching new people Catan is like trying to get them into that feeling of like, oh no, you should trade this like sheep for a wheat, or like I can trade you this, and they don't really know what the value of anything is yet. Like that's where Waterfall Park teaches you to think so that you can play Catan and play in that social way that I think most people enjoy the game being played as. I don't know why I'm trying to justify Catan so much. Anyways, we're gonna go to the next section. We're like just over halfway through the list. This is the 2-player section, as I mentioned before. This is where all the date games are. There's one from here. There's another game that we had in the library, but it's not in the library right now. So I'm gonna go to our store and I'm just gonna show you it in the wrap. This is a game called Toy Battle. So Toy Battle looks like a mobile game, which I think is the part that I don't like about it. Everything else I love about this game. This is a really good strategic 2-player game. If you're looking for something to play with somebody who also likes playing games, even if you're not super into games, this one is easy enough that you'll be able to pick it up, but has enough depth that you'll be able to play it over and over. So here's what it's about. Basically, as you can see on the back here, we've got this like map. You are trying to connect your base to the other person's base, okay? That's kind of your ultimate goal. You're doing that by placing these little pieces that you have on your rack down on the board. Every time you place a piece, that piece has a special power, okay? So one of them might be that you get to place an additional piece. One of them might be that you get to make your opponent discard one of the pieces from their rack, okay? So that as a game is cool enough, great, okay. But the thing that brought this to the next level for me is that in this game, you're gonna notice there's these like little stars, okay? So you can see these stars in these different areas. What you can do in this game is that if you manage to surround certain areas with your pieces, you actually get to collect the stars from in those areas. And if you collect 7 stars first, I think it's always 7, I'm not sure. If you collect 7 stars first, you win the game. So there's 2 ways to win this game. You can either connect your base to the other person's base with your pieces, or you can kind of zag instead of zig, and you can surround these different areas and collect these stars. And so it's kind of this battle on 2 fronts that makes you always feel like there's a different reason you want to do things or a different reason your opponent might be doing things. And you're always trying to think 2 steps ahead on these like 2 different fronts, but in a shell of a game that is very simple to play. There's another really great game that is a 2-player game called 7 Wonders Duel, which is like basically the game 7 Wonders and they turned it into a 2-player version. This has 3 different ways to win. And if you're ever wanting to play that, or you're wanting that like light strategy to medium strategy game experience in the future, Toy Battle is kind of, in my opinion, the first step that you can take towards that. There's also like different maps. So this is one map, but there's like different ones where some of them are asymmetrical. So you have like 2 bases and the other person has 1 base, and each one has different abilities on it. So not only do you get this game, you're also getting a whole bunch of different maps to play with the game. Anyways, that would be my first 2-player recommendation for you. I was really impressed by it. It was one of my favorite 2-players of last year. The other one that I have for you brings us into the next category that I have. This is a 2-player game, but it's also what is like an old game. It's not actually that old, but compared to a lot of these other games, this is now like an old game. And that is a game called Watergate, which is about the Watergate scandal, which frankly, I have no interest in. I know nothing really about it, but this game blew my mind. So this is a two-player game, and it's an asymmetric game. So this is something that I kind of mentioned in the last one. What that means is that each player is like going to be doing something different to play the game. And in this one, you are literally like reenacting the Watergate scandal. One of you is playing as Nixon trying to cover it up, and the other one are playing as like the journalists trying to investigate. As I said before, like I have no real interest in this as the like theming of a game. I know some people are really into historical games. I think this really transcends the historical game kind of mold because it fits. It feels like you really are kind of like acting that out, but in this really interesting way that I've not seen done before. So I just want to show you this board for a second because it'll give you an idea of what's happening in this game. There's basically two things that you're doing in this game, okay? First thing that you're doing is there's this track over here with post-it notes. That is the tug of wars. And I say tug of wars too because there's two different tokens on here that you're going to be playing cards to move back and forth. And you are basically pulling these back towards you so that you can get different benefits in the game, whether that's points or that's getting like being able to have extra cards and start playing in the next round. But at the same time, on top of doing those tug of wars, you have another thing that you're working on, and that is this board. This board is basically like the metaphor for like connecting Nixon to all of these different kind of like bad agents and all the stuff of the scandal. But the whole idea is that you are literally trying to like connect them like one of those like string boards, right, of the conspiracy theories. You're literally trying to connect them by placing down these tiles and linking evidence from Nixon to these different people. So while one person is trying to link them, like the journalists are trying to link them, the other person is Nixon. They're trying to like basically block them. So you're trying to block the evidence from connecting. So you're basically playing this like mini game. This is, I guess it's like kind of a main game, but at the same time, you're fighting over this. And at the same time, there's this like card element to this game where you can use cards for really powerful effects, but then you get rid of them from your deck and you cannot use them anymore. So you have to decide like, am I going to use this card right now and get this big swing, but then lose being able to use the card in the future? Or do I want to save it and keep getting the effect, but miss out on that really powerful action? So I will say this game isn't actually like that old. It is from 2020. But the one that we just looked at, Waterfall Park, is like a re-implementation, as I said, of an older game. But this next section that we're going to talk through is basically older games that you probably might have overlooked or forgotten about or never heard about, because oftentimes what I'm seeing is like, oh, there's new. There's so many new games. But like there's a lot of games that are already out that are really good. And this year I got to play a lot of old games. And by old, I don't even actually mean that old, but a lot of old games that really blew me away. So the next game I'm going to show you is back in the other section, and this one I think you're really going to like. So let me take you back to the long ago time of 2015. I know, this is might be hard to imagine. They were making games in 2015, and one of those games is a game that's called Broom Service, okay? Okay, now, not that this isn't good art, this is a beautiful painting, but just as the box design, in my opinion, this is a little bit dated, right? This looks like a bit of a dated game. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is the perfect example of that. Broom Service is a pick up and deliver game. What that means is basically you're a witch, you're on your broom, you're flying around this board, you're picking up things, and then you're delivering them in other places. So every round, you are going to basically choose some cards that you're going to play. Each one of these cards is like a different power that you can use in the game that you're going to want to use at different times. So for example, like this one is the Forest Witch, right? And each one has a special ability. What's great about this game is that when you play that card, you can decide if you want to play it safe or if you want to play it risky. And this to me was like the magic sauce of this game. It was deciding, do I want to be risky with this card? Because if you play it risky, you get a bonus effect. But it can get stolen by anybody else if they also played that same color of card. So there's a lot of different colors, right? You might be able to get away with it. You're like, I don't think anybody else played purple this round. No one else is looking for this thing. I'm going to be risky, and I'm going to be the risky fruit gatherer. But then all of a sudden, somebody else is like, I'm the risky fruit gatherer. And then somebody else is like, I'm the risky fruit gatherer. And only the last person is the person who actually gets to take that effect. So you basically can get completely blocked out of what you wanted to do with one of your cards because you tried to play it risky. Or, of course, the other option, just play it safe. But then you're like, great, I'm the safe peak druid, right? I'm the safe peak druid, and all of a sudden, no one else is playing the peak druid, and you're like, oh, come on, like I could have gotten so much more stuff instead of just sitting here like a bozo and getting a whole bunch of, little roots or whatever. To me, the thing that was special about this game is that for a game that is in the guise of like a light strategy game, this like would be something like Ticket to Ride. Like if you played Ticket to Ride before, it has that kind of flow to the actual game. It's a light strategy game. But the feeling of playing it, the experience around the table is not like Ticket to Ride. Instead, there's this like pressure of always being like, oh, do I want to do it? Do I want to not? And this feeling, this great feeling of everybody being like, no, I'm the forest witch. I'm the forest witch, and everybody getting excited, and oh, all these people losing their actions. It's this social element to a light strategy game that you don't often see, even in something like a 10 with a social trading element, where you are negotiating. It doesn't have that same feeling of that risk and that reward and that shouting it out and the stealing. And honestly, it kind of feels like a game like Hot Streak, the one that we talked about before with the mascots, where you have these big moments, these big like boom moments. But at its core, it's a good game. It's a pick up and deliver game. It's a smooth game. There's nice risk reward. Like you feel engaged with the actual gameplay. But there's that whole other element, that whole feeling that you get from playing the game. Now, speaking of feelings, the feeling that I got when I played this last game on the list right before my favorite one, the feeling that I got when playing this game is overwhelmed. This is the heaviest game. This is what's known as a heavy strategy game. This is for people who have played a lot of games before, want to bring it to the next level. And of course, this is a game called A Feast for Odin. So look at this, first of all, look at this box, okay? Compared to my pea head, look at the size of this box. This thing is freaking huge. Inside this thing, there's like 1.5 million pieces. Okay, so the theme of this game is that you're Vikings, you're doing Viking stuff. You need to feed your people, you got boats, you go out, you find new land, it's the whole Viking thing. I wanna show you what the action selection in this game looks like. What that means is that you have a little worker, you're gonna put it on one of these spaces. Usually you have like, 5, 10 spaces. This one, check this out. Kaboom. How's that for choices? On your turn, you're gonna put a worker on one of these spaces. Every single one of these is a different space on this board. You get to choose one of them on each turn of this game. And you get a lot of turns in this game. So as I said, this is an incredibly overwhelming game. There's so much stuff going on. And yet, I sat in this cafe for like 4.5 hours playing this with 3 of my friends, and the whole time I was enthralled. I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, I need to get this cow, and I need to go hunting, and then I need to go get this boat so that I can go discover this new land, but before I do that, I need this. The whole time, you're also doing this like Tetris thing, because you get these little boards, and you have like a main board, but I'll just show you this one. You have pieces, and they can fill up these little spots. And when you fill up different things, you get bonuses or like avoid negatives. So not only are you trying to get, like some food to feed your people, you're also trying to get that food to fill up like gaps in different spots. And all of the resources can trade up through these tracks. So you're like, okay, now I'm getting this piece of meat because I'm gonna trade it up in like 3 turns to become a treasure chest, and then I'm gonna use that to cover some other stuff. I would not recommend this game for anybody who hasn't played like a lot of games. This is gonna take you, it took me like over an hour to learn. It took us 4+ hours to play our first game. I've played a lot of kind of like heavier games. Ark Nova is one that I've played like a bunch. That one I know is very high on like Board Game Geek. But Feast for Odin, I think it's pretty high, but to me at least, I had not heard a lot of like big buzz about it. Until very recently when a couple people have been talking about it a lot. If you're looking for a game that you can invest in, that you can sink your teeth in, that you can play over and over and over and over again, and feel like you have more than one route to actually get to a specific style of victory, this is the one to try. Okay, so that's 10 games. We have 1 game left, my favorite game that I played last year. Before we do that, I had an idea to like take the 387 games I played last year and do like a blind tier rank of them. So if you think that would be interesting, let me know. I don't really want to do it unless people think it would be cool. You might get to see some like weird kind of niche games, but yeah, otherwise this is the last game. So as I said, My favorite game of last year was one that felt like no other game that I played before. I brought this out to a whole bunch of parties, and every single time it blew people away. This is a game where you cannot use any real words at all. So the pitch for this game is that you are making a language while you play the game, which I think is pretty cool. The game is called Da Da Da. As you can see, it has my name on it. This is my pick at the cafe, for obvious reasons. And in this game, you are basically taking these like sounds and associating them with words and then creating this language and then trying to describe things with that language. So let me show you how this looks. You're gonna start off with a bunch of these picture cards. They are just drawings of different things, okay? All of them have different aspects to them that you're gonna be using to relate to each other, okay? So that is the basic idea. We are gonna get a sound card, something like Sha, and collectively, we cannot use any real words. We're just gonna have to relate things to the word Sha. So as an example, I could say Sha, and I could take this picture and put it beside Sha and be like, Sha. People are like, Sha? I'm like, Sha. People are like, oh, Sha. And then I go, oh, Sha. And people go, Sha. Okay? No real words at all. But we are slowly associating sounds with meaning. So to me, this means like modes of transportation, ways to move around, vehicles, whatever you might think to describe that. It's not a clear, specific word that Sha means. It's more of the feeling, the idea, the association of these different things. Okay? Sometimes it's very obvious. Sometimes like things made of metal, things that are edible, things that are alive. Sometimes it's not. One of my favorite examples is I was playing with my family and we had a whole bunch of weird random stuff. There was like a picnic table and there was like an old man, which I think is here. Look, this old man, and there's a watermelon and there's this word that was like fla. And so, you know, we put the picnic table down and we put the watermelon on the picnic table and we put the old guy beside the watermelon and we went fla. We put some music in the air, fla. What does that mean? This game is a game about trying to communicate when you cannot communicate. And the whole idea is that in the second half of the game, you're gonna have to like pick up a thing and describe it in your language. So you're like, bobo flay. And then you put it down and mix it up with things and flip them over and people are looking at them and they're like, oh, bobo flay, right? That's the feeling of this game. You kind of get caveman brain, which I really like from games. I like feeling that like dumbing yourself down to a certain point. But this one, you're not feeling dumb. You're just feeling like you are communicating with the people around the table in a way that you would never have the opportunity to communicate with them. I also think that one of the coolest things about this game is that it kind of explains in the rulebook that the people who made this game were 3 people who spoke different like first languages. And so when they came together to make a game, there was a bit of a communication like abutment, like they'd had trouble talking to each other about how to make this game. And so what they ended up doing is making a game about like how to communicate with people without using a real language, without using any of their primary languages or any of their connected languages, basically making up a new language together. And transferring that experience into a game and being able to like show that to people, and you know, me as a human getting to try that with my friends and then bring it over to family and do it, you know, at a party, it creates these situations where there's a whole bunch of people and no matter what, you can connect with each other over this game and create something together that you can almost feel proud of without having to say a single word. So anyways, that is my top game of the year, Da Da Da. That's what I would recommend trying, because I just think every time that I showed somebody this game, they were impressed. They had a fun time. They wanted to play again, which sometimes is hard to like find games that people want to play over and over again. This one's an immediate like, let's play again, let's play again. And so for me, the best game that I can recommend for anybody out there who's looking for something that can cover your bases, you can play this with 2 people, you can play this with 20 people. This is kind of the one to try that will give you an experience that is not going to be like the typical board game experience that you might have with these other games. Anyways, that's it. I played 387 games. Don't really know how to end the video. Thanks for watching. Let me know what kind of stuff you want to see if you want me to do the blind tier ranking. Bye!